Hi everybody! Today I will show you how you can build your own fire contact sword. That's my training's contact sword and I will build a fire version of it. But first, roll that intro. If you like to know how to build your own contact fire sword, you're on the right spot. I will guide you in 2 parts through every step to build your own contact fire sword. Today we are going to mount the wick, and in the second part of the video next week we will mount the counterweight and the grip tape. But first, hey, my name is Kai. I recently switched on this YouTube channel from German to English on my tutorials to reach a bigger audience. It would be really great if you subscribe to the channel and don't miss any videos and upcoming tutorials. But now let's start. I'm using 120 centimeters of an alloy tubing with a diameter of 20 millimeters and a wall thickness of 2 millimeters. In this case it's a 6061, I hope that's right, alloy, which is strong enough for this purpose. At first we have to look our measurement, how long should be the blade and the handle of it. For that I will grab again my training's contact sword and will measure every dimension. We can also grab a marker and roughly transfer the dimensions on the tube. In this case my blade is 55 centimeters, my grip length is about 45 and the place in between is for the fire shield, which will be mounted in the second part. What we will need is the tubing, some wood which fits into the alloy tubing, your Kevlar wick. I'm using 10 centimeter wide wick, but you can change it to every dimension you're used to. I'm a European guy, so maybe you have to calculate a little bit to get it in football field, arms or whatever. And some screws and washers fitting in the right size. To start, we have to check how much wick we need. I prefer to have more wick on the outside of the stuff and less on the inner, so you get like a tapered shape, because it's better for the balance and for the feeling to play if the outer head is a little bit heavier than the inside. I like to start with about 4 rounds of wick on the head and then go step by step a little bit less. For that we just grab our wick and wrap it around. But if you want more or less, it's totally fine to change it to your own dimension. Now we need a little bit more to fold it over itself and we can cut it. So now we have the first part of our wick. This is roughly 40 centimeters. We take a little bit of washi tape and use it to fix the wick, but that's the wrong side, which I marked, so I have changed it. And you try to pull really hard on the wick to get it nice and flush to the tube, because every little wobble or air pocket between the wick will decrease the lifetime of it. So it's pretty nice to make it really tight. Now we secure it just with a rubber band for a second. And now I will repeat this step for every wick which I will add down until the whole length of the blade is covered in Kevlar. So now we mounted roughly the wick on the alloy tubing, so we can start just simply by twisting the Kevlar wick to align every head, that you here have the fold on the same side. And now we are going to drill with a 3mm drill, and I have 4mm screws, so they have a nice grip into the alloy tubing. But before we put the screws in, I show you a second part. But at first, we are going to drill. Now we grab our drill with the right bit size, and I have drilled 3 holes in every part of the wick. So 1 wick with 3 holes, 1 wick with 3 holes, and so on. At first we will place the wood core on the side before we will drill in. This had 2 reasons. Reason number 1 is the flame can't travel inside the tubing and heaten it up, or even in the worst case will come out on the other side. And there is more material to grab on for the screws to get an even better hold. But first, we only drill in every middle hole. Why, you see in a second. Now, after we have roughly fixed the wicks with 1 screw, we can remove all the rubber bands, which make the next steps a lot easier. As you might already noticed, I haven't drilled the screws the whole way in, and that has a reason. The next part will be a little bit tricky, but pretty good. You take a big nail, or a tool like that. In German it's called Ahle. If you know how it's called in English, just leave it in the comments, so you have the other one. I hope you can see it here with a close-up cam. I try my best. You go with it between the wick and the screw. And you try to wiggle the hole in the wick a little bit bigger, that you can slip the wick on this place over the screw. And now you see the screw almost disappears behind the wick. Now we tighten it all the way down. And here you can just squeeze and wiggle a little bit the wick again until everything is nice and flush again. And in this way we can hide a lot of the metal of the screws underneath the wick, but we don't have to work to sew the whole wick up. And now you repeat it for every middle screw. After we buried all the screws, we are going to make it slightly different for the last step and the final mount of the wick. It can be a bit tricky, I again try to show it on the close-up cam. You take your washer, put it between the last layer of your wick and the main part of the wick to hide all the metal. And now you grab your tool again, going through the washer and through the rest of the wick. And now you push it all the way down until you find where your hole was, where you drilled it. Again, now you just remove the tool and try not to move it too much. You will place the screw, drill it in, and we will bury the head of the screw in the same way we done it with the other one. But now we have a bigger surface with a washer to attach the wick. So now, after we buried the first screw with the washer, we are going to repeat the step with every remaining hole. So basically 2 washers on every wick. After we buried all the screws beneath the Kevlar, basically our fire blade is finished. I know it's not the most common design to use a lot of separate wicks, but in this case, in my opinion, it's the best way to get a nice bigger wick without buying a whole lot of rope, which can be really, really expensive, much more expensive than this wick, and to making a lot of knots and weaving around it. Next week, in part 2, I will show you how I designed the counterweight and the grip area, so we finish the whole fire contact sword. So please click the subscribe button, ring the bell icon, so you don't miss the next video where we will finish this fire contact sword.